By the strength of the coalition, Western Asia was settling into a stable peace, with the only major concern being that everyone felt like they had strange memories of a world where everything was exactly the same, but with a few exceptions. Who was the old Pontic general Mithridates that so many records seem to talk about? It mattered not to the ruling elite, who were enjoying limitless wealth by virtue of the ever-growing list of paying coalition members.
You look very good in gold.
It's rather heavy, actually, Your Majesty.
Such is the weight of our responsibility. For the good of all humanity, the coalition must have free access to all corners of the world, and money is enough to do anything asked of it. Your work in Bactria has brought us one step closer to such perfection.
Thank you, Your Majesty. It was no problem for my men. They fought well. I wonder what you think would be an appropriate reward for them.
For the men, the foot soldiers. If they require reward, you would do well to remind them that they are on the winning side. That is reward in itself, is it not?
I think they wanted more material rewards, Majesty.
You are paying these professional soldiers a monthly sum, are you not?
That's right, Your Majesty. By ensuring that they do not need to rely on farms or trades, they can commit to soldiering fully. This explains their exceptional abilities.
But not their exceptional greed. They have been paid for their services already. Remind them of that. The money available to this coalition has better places to be than between the bosoms of tavern wenches. That reminds me, I wondered if you know how to deal with a certain problem.
Problem, Your Majesty. I'll do what I can.
Actually, I think I might have better luck in the tavern myself. You are dismissed. Hello and welcome back to Wings of Eden. We're starting off this time with a war. Apparently we've been dragged into some war up here in Scandinavia. I guess these tribes are going to try and go to war with each other, and because they're not all in the coalition, we're going to constantly be joining these wars. But that's kind of good for us. We can use the war as leverage against these tribes to force other ones to join the coalition, and eventually we should be able to get enough of them that peace will be enforced upon them. So there we go, just got the guys right at the top of the map. Down with the Illyrian war, I've got our Siuka here going to besiege Pella. Notice that the Illyrians have somehow taken this place. Thought this is more significant than the other place we were going for on the western coast, so we'll just set up for a siege. But then they actually brought troops over to challenge my siege, and I thought, well, I don't care that much, actually. We'll just go away. There's no point fighting a battle that's going to be anything like difficult. They end up pursuing us a bit there, so we can actually go after them now and fight a regular field battle without the garrison from the city being involved. Strangely, the balance bar is pretty much exactly the same as it was without the garrison as it was with it, but whatever, looks like a perfectly reasonable battle to me, so we get started. While I am the attacker in this fight, once I got close and set up on a hill just in front of the enemy, they charged out to attack me when they noticed I was going to start doing annoying horse archer antics, so we are going to get the defensive advantage for all intents and purposes. In they come at first with a load of skirmishers. These are some of the heavier skirmisher types, so they don't really get brought down by all of our archers hitting them. And when they start throwing their jabs back, it actually does a fair bit of damage, not necessarily to our heavily shielded and armoured front line, but jabs going over and hitting the archers, that's pretty dangerous, and in fact our archers in the centre actually get routed away by the attacks by the javeliniers. Not too bad. Usually the AI just runs the javelins into melee, so they're doing pretty well this time around. They've got a whole load of generic spears and a few superior noble troops to fight our front line, but nothing that should be able to overcome any of my melee units, so we aren't going to be able to hold strong and keep the enemy in position. Over here our hypaspists should just annihilate those low quality spears. We drive away some enemy skirmish cav on our left, and I'm going to send a load of javelineers around behind the enemy's melee blobs to do some damage. For some reason I charged our general Asiuka out down the middle of the battlefield, the enemy's skirmishers turned to attack him, and that started doing a fair bit of damage, so in turn I turned to charge into the skirmishers. We managed to get both these jabs and these archers with the same charge, so we can draw them both into melee and stop them from firing, although we now end up surrounded by that light infantry, and the enemy general takes note and starts coming over here with some heavier guys. I actually ended up running away because the general might have actually been good in melee, but as usual in Attila, running away, especially with Cav, means taking huge casualties. Everyone gets animation locked and the game treats you as having no melee defense, I think, while you're moving, so your men just die instantly. But most of the unit did escape, at least. Now my skirmishers get into position to do our main strategy for this battle, just throwing jabs into the backs of the units along the front line and getting them to leave. This unit leaves after I attack, but it's not leaving to rout. It's actually switching target to go and attack my skirmishers, which is the right thing to do in this situation, especially since they're fast and can escape my front line, although they then just routed anyway since they're not a very good unit. And my skirmishers continued on, attacking in particular that huge blob in the centre that's formed as the enemy just focus on trying to break through at one point, giving me plenty of freedom and plenty of other units to use against them. That's what we like to see. I ran some spearmen from the right somewhere forwards to start charging after their skirmishers to get rid of them. There's our general again going after some more skirmishers, and this time getting a decent charge right through the middle of those javelineers in nice low level of detail by keeping the camera very far away. And as you can see, the main fight's slowly turning into a surround and pound situation. On our left, we've got the surround and pound going, and there's just this little blob here in the centre to deal with. As my infantry start charging to surround things, the battle's going to come to an end. In particular, when we hit the enemy general at the back here with a few half-dead cavalry units, he routs under that pressure, and the rest of the army routs precisely along with him. I played a bit of the rout phase, for no reason really, been playing too much Medieval 2 where it's more important to actually do that, and there's the eventual result. Didn't lose any units, they lost a whole load, so that's what we like to see. I'll move this army south a little bit to put it back into Allied territory, then they can finally get some replenishment and be at full strength. There's no real pressure to actually go on the offensive here, as I said before, just doing it for no particular reason. Now a new war arises as for some reason the Ptolemaic kingdom decides to declare war on the Medes. We've seen this thing happen before where random factions far away from Midrash pretend they just declare war on them. They seem to be particularly able to acquire enemies at a long distance. Anyway, we side with them. The Ptolemaic kingdom is just one settlement at the moment, but they do have various armies, and they're going to quickly take themselves a new settlement, taking out one of our client states there. There was then a battle against some of their troops outside Alexandria. Our client states, or puppet states, are going to fight this one for us, but because Bakru was in range, I can take part in the auto-resolve. But then, in an outrageous twist, we actually lose a unit of Armenian cataphracts in the battle, even though it was extremely one-sided. Not sure how we did that. I'll have to go all the way back to Armenia to get those guys again, which realistically means I'm not going to get them again.
You immeasurable fool! You unforgiven comedian! You far-gone sow! You foam-hollering dog! You flaming imbecile! I know you're still thinking that your god Alexander's watching down on you, but that doesn't give you no right to request such fine horsemen of a reasonable man such as myself, only to charge them into a den of spears like fish jumping into a damn boat. I ought to strap you to a couple of shields and float you out into the vengeful ocean so Ahura Mazda can do what she will with you. But luckily, you just so happen to also be under my protection as an officer of the coalition. So this particularly peeved prince is gonna let you go with only a modest bribe, payable in multiple, affordable installments every full moon for so long as it takes to secure a letter of satisfaction from each family who lost a man due to your incompetence. Now I say good day to you, sir.
The actions of those Ptolemaics actually caused us to legitimately lose one of our puppet states. They've been liberated in a sense, or they declared their own independence because they don't have any territory left, and that's turned them into a horde, and I guess that sort of makes them a new faction or something in the game's logic. We're not at war with them or anything, so it's not an actual rebellion. They have legitimately left. We'll have to take revenge. All Bakru needs to do is hang about near Alexandria because Tashimau have already started a siege, and Manuakapi happens to be on the way back from all that stuff over in the east, so he can divert to go and attack Tyros and start pushing the Ptolemaics back off of the mainland. We've also got Naram Suram, who can come down towards Cyprus, which is the Ptolemaic base, and I'm going to sail him out there to try and attack them from the sea. I've also got the Manuakapi clone, who I mentioned previously, bringing reinforcements over towards the Illyrian war. You can see the coalition is hard at work. We've got allies all over the place doing work for us, so we don't really need to step in here, but I'm going to eventually move up towards Pella. For now, I'll just continue replenishing since we're not quite at full strength. During the next end turn sequence, Carthage declare war on the Egyptian nobles, so now we're going to have to step in and be at war with Carthage. I was planning to go to war with them anyway, our men just aren't really in position yet. We'll just start things early by the looks of things and, of course, force the entire coalition to also be at war with Carthage, who are the #1 strength-ranked faction in the game, surely a worthy rival for us. This place over here will be our first target, but there's still going to be some delay because Bakru, who is the nearest army, needs to hang around. We're kind of at the mercy of the AI, since we have to wait for them to decide to start the attack on Alexandria before that business can be concluded. Looks like the Ptolemaic army has sailed away from Tyros. Manuakapi can't get there this turn, but should be easy enough if he can get there before they come back. With Asuka, I wanted to go for Pella now, but this allied army from Nabatea is just standing on the river crossing, and it's blocking me from walking past, so it's just not going to happen. We're both going to stand here staring at the city. Maybe they were waiting for me before they made the attack. Never really sure how the AI works. You can see though that Tashimau have been busy. They've sent an army further up into Illyria and are besieging another city. There's also more conflict going on to the north and east because the various random tribes that I dragged into the coalition are now providing a nice distractionary war and keeping Illyrian forces busy. That's all looking good. The coalition war machine is effective. So effective in fact that we might as well expand it. I'm back on the diplomacy screen to make some more purchases. I was able to buy pretty much all of Belgium and a whole load of other territories up there. A nice little purchase, and there are going to be more to come as we spread our dirty, gold-ridden fingers all over Gaul.
Your prompt return is most appreciated. My king, why did you order this? The city was ripe for the plundering, and countless ravens had already gathered for the occasion. Now we shall be the only ones not growing rich and fat from the folly of the Greeks. The walls of Massalia will not fall to them nor anyone. They are protected. A great power looms over both them and us, and wills that we stay our hands. You received a message from the gods. Gods among men only, yet their wisdom runs deep. We are going to work with the Greeks to find something more important than their or our survival. What do you mean? What is this we are to find? The secrets of life, my friend. Secrets of life. Secrets of life. Are they to be found in the carriages of jewels you are trying to hide in the forest, my king? In a sense, yes. Yes. It matters not to you, a common fool. Right. So, will you share your wisdom with me? Or am I going to have my hungry army make its own mind?
As we push on towards the next turn, the trend continues. All these wars going on in Europe are just drawing us into little conflicts that we don't have any position to do anything about. But just being in them might give us some leverage to get something good. We actually ended up here at war with one of the bigger factions over there, but we'll see in a minute that's not going to be much of a problem. And then later in the end turn sequence, a much smaller faction joins the war, and they will also eventually not be a problem for a very different reason. Now, we ended up doing this attack on Alexandria, where Bakru is reinforcing. Balance bar's looking pretty good. We've got 4 armies here, thanks to the Arabians showing up to help. So I thought, fine, we'll auto-resolve. This time I picked protective stance, so that Bakru hopefully wouldn't lose any men. And it was a disaster. We lost 4 units. It appears that almost all the losses taken by the Allied army were among Bakru's force. We've lost more units that we can't re-recruit. This is terrible. The good news is that the game then crashed at the start of the next turn, so I had to play that end turn sequence again, meaning we're now back at this auto-resolve and we can try another strategy. I put Bakru at the end of the list using the little arrow keys. That in theory means his troops are given the lowest priority and are used last in the battle reinforcement logic, but the game just moves them back up to second place and we again lose loads of men. This time it was slightly fewer than last time. We only lost 3 units instead of 4, but still very outrageous for such an easy win. Now I immediately puppet stated that smaller faction up in Swabia, so that war's over. The war against the big faction didn't happen in this alternate universe. We ended up at war with a smaller faction instead that we can just ignore, but they wouldn't be my puppet state very meanly. Siuka can finally advance, the Nabateans have wandered off, so just going to set up a siege here at Pella. No particular intention to even do it, I've just got an army here so it might as well do something. Now here's the more important business down in the Levant. Manuakapi is ready to attack Tyros, but our allies from Tetrapolis are already doing it, so we can head to the south and instead try to counterattack at Jerusalem, where the Ptolemaics did the old instantly take a settlement trick from Nabatea. Our allies are also there, ready to support that attack. The main thing I want to do this turn is a dangerous assault on the Ptolemaic base over on Cyprus. I'm going to do a port assault, so we're not going to bother landing and sieging. We're going to try and just storm into the city this turn using whatever landing points are available. There are 2 ships that might block our progress, and a modest garrison. It's weaker than our army, but of course it's already in the city, so it's going to have a strategic advantage. The first thing we'll need to worry about are the 2 naval units, since they have the potential to wreak havoc among our weak transport ships. Also keep in mind that I do have those cavalry units in the army that for now are just trapped on land. They have no way of getting into the city, no way of doing anything really, so they're just going to stand around. Looking at our fleet, you can probably tell that it's multiple ships per unit, as we've seen at some point in the past in this campaign. It's actually 3 boats for every unit, so we have absolutely loads of boats that need to coordinate, and that's going to make things extra difficult when it comes to landing. Here's a little look at our Romanised infantry. Basically it's guys in armour with a big shield and a sword, just some heavy infantry. Nice to make a change from spearmen now and again, I suppose. My first big move is to send all of the archer ships forwards to try and deal with the enemy navy. The problem we're going to have is that the siege ship is hitting us with the big flaming balls, and it has area of effect, so here it actually takes out 2 of our ships at the same time. Just takes 1 ship to get 100% fire damage on a transport, which means they will then be destroyed after a while. In this case it was 2 ships that are in the same unit, so the 3rd and final ship will just rout due to the extreme manpower losses those sinkages will incur. All I can do in response is try to shoot fire arrows into the ship and set it on fire, but it's just not happening. The amount of fire damage that our fire arrows are doing is negligible. We never really got it above 1 or 2% fire damage. There was an upside though that I didn't know about to using fire arrows on a siege ship in particular. You can actually individually destroy the siege pieces. So it's gone. Now its main weapon's gone. Things are going to be much less dangerous, except they can do that. When the crew throw their javelins, it uses the siege attack as the projectile, and we immediately lose a ship. We were lucky to not lose multiple ships to that volley. That was particularly dangerous. Handily enough, I guess they only have 1 shot of that special weapon because they don't throw anything else. Instead they come in for a boarding action. Here they are going to find some success. This siege ship has a decent enough crew. They'll be able to take out the archers on this ship. The other ship, by the way, just went and landed, and that gave our cataphracts something to do. I could just send all of them into this unit. It was just called something like paid infantry, very generically named unit. Anyway, we ran right through them, killed half of them, and they routed, and that was the end of them. Then back out at sea, I moved over some of my Romanised infantry to join the boarding action here, and now we should have the advantage man-to-man fighting against the enemy crew, and will gradually be able to win that fight. While that's going on, the rest of the army needs to focus on trying to get into the city, so I thought I'd take a look at how that's going to happen. We have one big issue, and that's that most of the coast isn't landable. There's obstructions all over the place, so we can land here in this one space, which is big enough for one unit of 3 ships to land, or over here further down the coast where there's another space for 1 unit. Both positions are defended by some tier 3 heavy pikes, making landing extra difficult. However, there is no other choice. We have to just try and do it, and the fact that all 3 ships have to land at the same time will make this a slow and laborious process.
As we rowed up to the coast to inspect the progress of the fleet, we came upon a band of sailors between 2 banks of trees. Without hesitation, our riders drove them into the ground and made captives of a great many. Then there was a flash of orange light at sea. All looked out aghast as a great wall of flames seemed to erupt from the only enemy vessel. It flew over to our ships and crashed like a wave, spreading a firestorm among many craft. What magic was used remains unknown, for our troops slew the wizards without fear. Then they turned to the city, seeing spears bristling at the end of the narrow approach. No hesitation was seen as the captains ordered the ships forwards into the maw of the enemy. Seeing their determination, I knew that these hand-picked soldiers could truly achieve anything. This landing was to be a mere step on their path to fame, and it brought a tear to my eye to bear witness to it.
The initial attack on the beach did not go very well, as our reinforcements flounder around the place and try to get into position. The first unit was engaged from the front by the enemy pikes before they became available to control, meaning you couldn't order them not to, and now they're totally stuck. There's nowhere they can go, they're just going to gradually be defeated by those pikes, and there we go, there's them routing, with pretty much negligible damage done to the pikes and the supporting infantry. That was a bad start, so now when I land another unit, we'll just be in the same position again. At least some men who landed further along the coast had better luck. The other landing point was no longer defended because the enemy took their pikes over to defend that initial point after I attacked. So we've got troops in the city currently capturing some towers. As for the initial point, I decided to not attack with any more infantry and instead use the archers. In theory, with the pike phalanx just sitting here, we can have our archers gradually kill them from a distance. Doesn't work in practice though, because of stats. I believe this pike unit is so high tier, so heavy and elite, that archers just can't damage them. We shot them for ages, and I brought up another unit of infantry to throw jabs into the front of it as well. And between all of these attacks, we didn't kill a single enemy. It had absolutely no effect on them, this bombardment, which was not what I expected and not what we need right now. After a while, they did actually start wandering off. Perhaps the AI didn't like being under all this fire, so they did vacate that point and stand around the corner, allowing me to move some infantry in, but that had its own challenges. We had a classic Rome 2/Attila glitch, with the boat getting stuck on land. It has to wait there for the other boats to catch up now, so these men are just stuck doing nothing, and here are the enemy troops hiding behind a little naval warehouse thing, not being shot quite so much as they were before, I guess. Now as they run back over, my men finally start getting off the ship. This is a bit better than our first attempt at an attack, because the enemy aren't in formation to start with. They're going to rush into the fight. We still won't have any opportunity to give orders because we haven't got control of the unit yet. But now that a fight's suddenly starting, we don't really need to give any orders. We'll just leave them here. We're actually fighting these pikemen and their supporting swords on various sides, and the pikes haven't got their phalanx ready. The boat's busily rowing its way through the sand, so luckily they managed to reverse the glitchy situation they were in. Although there's another glitch which often happens, which is that not all of the men actually managed to get off the ship. These two guys look like they are ready to go. Clearly some personal dispute has distracted them from the whole situation. That means our entire unit won't be able to deploy. Some of them will now be glitchily stuck out to sea. But things are looking okay here. We've got the enemy group surrounded almost on 3 sides, and the direction the pikes eventually ended up facing was the one direction I wasn't attacking from, so that's about as good as it can get. We could use extra infantry in there to support, since one unit probably isn't enough to get through those enemies, but that's something right there. and the landings up at the other end of the city have gone fine because we're not contested. We're going to try and capture the gatehouse here and then move over other infantry to help with our initial attack. Since the rest of the battle still hasn't got started, the main battle really hasn't happened, we'll come back to this next time. That is it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to all of the Officially Devon patrons. We'll see the rest of that battle, and we will have to see a little bit more time convoluting magic, as it turns out, in the next part of Wings of Eden.